Hello and welcome back to the Light Path podcast as always. Thank you so much for joining me here to explore these topics around spirituality, around self-expansion, and ultimately to get to a point where we are so in love with the process of curiosity and expansion that it just becomes a way of life for us, and we're tantalized constantly by the next version, level, or experience of ourselves. And today I want to dip into something that is really, really near and dear to my heart, and it's becoming very much the foundational practice personally that I am having, and the thing that I think about most when it comes to energetic spirituality and just my life in general. We are so primed in life to be constantly seeking and creating and wanting more and better, and it's often really directed at the outside world. So I want a pay rise, a new job, a better partner, a different body, or whatever it is, thinking that it's going to bring us into this state of happiness. I mean, anything that we want when it comes down to it, we don't want the thing so much as we want the way we think we're going to feel when we have the thing. And so really that just reiterates the idea that we live in a vibrational universe. We live in a universe of vibes and frequencies. Emotions, or the way in which we desire to feel, is really about energy in motion, because that's just exactly what emotions are. They're just energy in motion, constantly moving, constantly ebbing, flowing, changing, expanding, shrinking, whatever it is. But anything that we do truly, really want in life can be pinpointed back to the emotion that we would desire to experience if we were to have or embody that desire. So if that is true, which I believe it definitely to be, then fundamental to our well-being and to our connection with ourselves and the world is an aspect of vibrational frequency that deep down belongs only to us. And I think that vibrational frequency is often misconstrued to be something that it's not. We know that the frequency of love, of gratitude, of joy and happiness are very high in terms of us becoming very light, very magnetic, very expansive. And anything that we desire or that we want in the external world will be very much represented by the desire to embody those emotions. But I think because we're on this planet and there is a lot of choice, and our free will is doing its thing with its ego, with our egos kind of not calling the shots necessarily, but keeping us safe within those desires, I think we can be very easily distracted or swayed to believe that there are certain things or occurrences in our lives that will generate for us the feelings of love, gratitude, joy, happiness. But I'm here to challenge that, because I don't think that that is necessarily the best and most effective way to access those high vibrational frequencies. And I think the missing ingredient that we're often not in a deep relationship within ourselves is the frequency and the embodiment of authenticity. This is the frequency at which we don't even really need to worry about joy, happiness, and gratitude, because when we are solely focused on what is authentically good and right and purposeful to us, the rest of it just takes care of itself. So today I want to discuss why I truly believe that authenticity is considered the most powerful frequency. And there's research to back this up. And I want to explore with you some really practical ways in which we can cultivate authenticity within our day-to-day lives. So what does it mean to be authentic? And I think authenticity is really simple to define. I think it's just that quality that we can cultivate of being really genuine and true to ourselves. And in that process, we are extremely consistent with ourselves in terms of our words and our actions. It's about being real, being transparent, and, which will come as no shock to many of you who know me, to be very aligned and congruent with our inner values and subsequent beliefs we have about ourselves and the world in which we live in. Authenticity is so powerful that there's been so much research on it. So as a simple example, a journal published by the Counseling Psychology found that individuals who are more authentic tend to have higher self-esteem, a greater sense of life satisfaction, and lower levels of stress and anxiety. You've probably got a lot more strength. Another study from the University of Georgia highlighted that authentic leaders are those that lead with transparency, moral integrity, and they're just really true to their own sense of self. And so they're more effective in building trust and fostering really positive relationships with the teams that they are leading. So ultimately, being authentic within yourself and for yourself is going to lead to a lot greater level of ease and success as you move throughout your life. And this is why I highly value values, because our values are almost like the baseline to our authenticity. And many of you have worked through the values pathway from the Light Path Collective. It's a self-paced 4-part module that you do with yourself at your own pace. And you're working through not only just to identifying your values, like that is basic step 1, but then you're actually learning to identify and define what those values actually mean for you, not what you were taught that they mean in terms of your cultural or family background, but what those values specifically mean for you in your life right now. And as you work through these 4 modules, you actually leave the values pathway with not just a clear sense of your top 4 or 5 values, but you are actually gifted the opportunity to write each of your values out as like a manifesto for your life. So you have set a very solid foundation of who you authentically are and what is authentically extremely important to you. Once you have that foundation, living your life authentically becomes so much easier, but also so much more enjoyable, because you're not living an authentic life in accordance to anybody else, that you have been brave enough to stand deep within your own truth, to define these values for yourself in a way that makes sense to you in your life right now. And then once you have that, every decision that you make, whether it's from how you show up to work, the partner that you choose to connect with, how it is you conduct your friendships, the way in which you parent, what you wear, what you eat, how you spend your leisure time, every single decision will link back to an alignment with those values. And if they're not, your no's to life become so clear and your yeses become so nourishing. So I will link it in the show notes to go to the values pathway to be able to work through that process. Now, this process is not a one-off in life. There are some values that might be true to your heart and your circumstances consistently throughout your life. Love is a value for me that has never fallen off my list, but I will say the manifesto and how I describe love and want to live out that value in my life has changed and shifted according to my current understandings of myself and my circumstances. So once you have worked through those 4 modules of the values pathway, you will have that as a blueprint to know how to do this. And I do this work at least a couple of times a year to check in with myself, to recommit to my values, and to ensure that I am embodying that most potent and highest frequency of authenticity. So in terms of authenticity, it is something that we are actually called to constantly review and constantly tap into. And the idea of authenticity as a frequency can kind of be viewed through energetics. So when we are authentic, we're going to be admitting or embodying a kind of energy that actually resonates really deeply with not just ourselves, but others. And it's this resonance that makes us and our interactions with others so much more compelling and impactful. The connections become deeper, the alignments become stronger. But yes, so do the misalignments, which are fantastic because then we're not wasting time on energy on people and places and things that are not within our authenticity. And I think that when you meet someone who is truly authentically themselves, do you know the biggest feeling I get is that I trust them because I can tell that they trust themselves to be who they desire to be and who they truly are. Because when we embrace our authenticity, we are going to be polarizing. We are going to maybe turn some people off. And that's what I love to see with people, that when they're so unafraid, when they trust themselves so deeply, that they are embodying authenticity, that I find it so much easier to trust them, but also I find it so much easier to trust myself around them. If you're listening to this in Australia and you watched Maths this year, don't judge me, but I watched it this year. I don't often watch that show, but I don't know why I was just drawn to it this year. And maybe it's because I think people were so ready to see somebody like Lucinda, who was so uniquely, authentically herself, and her authenticity had the basis, or I imagine her values, I've never met the woman, but I imagine her values were very deeply anchored in love and respect. And everything she did oozed from that space. And no matter what was going on around her, she was able to stay so consistent with her own authenticity that everyone couldn't not help but fall in love with her. And not in love with her as in enamored, but in love with her as in deeply respectful of her. And I think that when you're in that position, you can have the influence and the impact that you wish to have. That is a byproduct. Ultimately, what you are or have cultivated is that deep sense of peace and happiness and strength within yourself. The psychologist Carl Rogers has, in his work, really emphasized the importance of alignment or authenticity within our inner experiences and our outer expressions. And he sees it in his work as the essential aspect for healthy psychological functioning. So this isn't just of the emotional side of things or the pragmatic side of things. This is the deep mental health that we can gain, because when we are in alignment, there's going to be a natural flow and ease in our interactions with others. And people can see this and sense this and trust it, like I just discussed. This authenticity, this energy really fosters that openness and trust, and that is the only place where we can have what is most healthy for ourselves, which is that genuine connection with others. So how do we cultivate authenticity? Well, first up, we have to know thyself, self-reflection. And I've just outlined and suggested how I do it myself and have provided you a resource to do that. It's taking the time to not just think about what you value and what you believe about yourself and the world and your preferences for what you like to do, to have, to be, what's important to you, what you're passionate about. It's actually not just to think about it, it's to really embody it, to really own it, which is why writing a manifesto type statement or a mission type statement for each of your values that you're coached in on that values pathway is so important. If you're just wanting to dip into this on a daily basis, simple, beautiful rituals such as journaling are so helpful to explore authentic aspects of yourself. Like questions of how do I feel today? How do I want to feel today? What truly matters to me today? And am I showing up in authentic alignment with my values? Journaling is something that I like to try and do every single morning after a quick 10-minute morning meditation. If this is not in your practice, I strongly recommend adopting rituals that serve you on a daily basis. Life is hard, life is tricky, life is busy. But when we have these practices that we can really draw upon and stay consistent with them, we are going to get more and more comfortable with our authenticity. And I think it's only when we're comfortable with it, when we're in full acceptance of who we authentically are, and in many cases, who we authentically desire to evolve into, like what are our next steps? What are our next desires? Why do I desire them? That's when we can go out into the world and have that trusted openness, impact, and genuine connection with others. But when we don't have that first step with ourselves, I feel like we're a leaf in the wind because we're so susceptible to other people telling us who we are. What is it that will make us happy or feel safe and secure? Other people will be there telling us what our potential is, what our strengths are, what our weaknesses are. When we don't have that authentically within ourselves, we can't challenge it. And so we're going to be blown around by other people's limitations, their other people's agendas, and not necessarily negative agendas. Some of them can be really positive. But when we know who we are ourselves, we can listen to all that feedback because let's face it, we're going to get that feedback anyway, right? But we can listen to that feedback from a place of deep discernment. So we can take what resonates and what is helpful, and we can with ease just let anything else that isn't go. Another way to cultivate authenticity is to be very, very mindful. When you are practicing mindfulness, you have this deep connection to your true self. So mindfulness is literally just being present and aware, to be fully in every single moment you find yourself in. And when you're there, just to become aware, nothing else, just aware of the thoughts that you're having, the feelings that are coming up as a result of these thoughts, and then what actions you choose to take or not take as a result of that. Once you have this practice going on, you can make choices that are way more conscious and that reflect your authentic self. Ultimately, you become a responder as opposed to a reactor in life. And just start, I think sometimes a really sneaky way to do this is to start noticing this in other people. Like, are these people in my life that I may be interacting with, at work or in the family or whatever it is, are they responders or are they reactors? And what makes them that way? And I think it comes back to that just lack of connection to self and really being able to hold yourself throughout all the tricky moments in life. Which leads me to the next aspect of cultivating authenticity. You cannot become authentically you and hold the vibration of authenticity without embracing vulnerability. So vulnerability, obviously Brené Brown is a leader in the field of vulnerability. And if being vulnerable, even with yourself, is something that you may struggle with or feel uncomfortable with, I highly recommend reading her work, or even I think it's her TED Talk that is called The Power of Vulnerability. Even just watch that. But ultimately, when we see vulnerability as being really open to your whole self, your strengths, your weaknesses, the things that are really great about you, your things that are completely imperfect about you, the things that you find really easy and the things that you find really challenging, that you're able to hold the whole of you. None of us are perfect. And all this work that we do, in the light path and other modalities of healing and evolving and growing, it isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming closer to the essence of love. It's about being able to be all of who we are authentically and being okay with that, honoring that, as a matter of fact. Just to quote Brené Brown, she says, vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change. So if there's any aspect of your life that you're craving difference in, that you're wanting to find ways forward in, that you are wanting to expand in, you can't do that without being vulnerable. Vulnerability isn't about going out and telling everyone everything. Being vulnerable. Being vulnerable is about sitting with thyself authentically. Now, when you're able to create authenticity or cultivate authenticity, do you know one of the best byproducts of this is actually your ability to set boundaries. Now, I think boundaries is a whole topic within itself, but when you're able to set healthy boundaries, I believe that you can only do that because you do authentically know who you are and you highly value maintaining your authenticity. So when I know who I am, when I know what is valuable to me, what my values are, my no's become very easy and my yeses become very expansive, because nothing is going to get in the way of me and maintaining my authenticity. You can say no to the things that don't align with your values or drain you, which creates all the space for what truly does matter to you and what truly honors your authentic self. Not just that, but what truly expands and amplifies your authentic self. Some no's I give out is because I'm worried about being really authentic. But when you really know who you are, you're actually excited to expand into that. And it might feel challenging and uncomfortable and vulnerable, but because you are so dedicated to your authenticity and this vibration is so potent, you know how potent it is, that you are okay with really setting boundaries that actually expand thyself. And above all, I think cultivating authenticity is about the seeking of authentic connections. And in my work with the thousands of people that are brave enough to come and sit in front of me every year for readings and healings, this is at the crux of everything. How can I be in connections with others that do feel nourishing and amazing and actually inspire and hold me and that are safe? And I just don't think you can do it without being authentic. Again, like setting boundaries, when you know who you are, you know who you want to be with somebody else. You know how you want to be with somebody else. And authentic connections really should be so nourishing for your soul and to really reinforce and encourage, but also sometimes hold you accountable to that authentic sense of self. And I don't think you can get through any of this without circling back to that very first one of self-reflection or curiosity, because being authentic is not a one-stop shop. Like, I'm never going to sit down one day, decide and define who I am, and that is going to see me through the rest of my life. And I think generations previous may have been conditioned that way, or may have succumbed to that way of being because it just suited maybe the human evolution or the economic or the political environments of the time. But this is why now is such an exciting time as we expand into the age of Aquarius, where all we are being asked of for the next 20 years is please know who you are and show up fully as that, because the world needs you. Which is why the most important frequency is authenticity, because it connects you with your true self and it allows you to resonate with others on such a profound level that cultivating your authenticity will absolutely enhance your well-being. You'll build stronger, more meaningful relationships, and hopefully have a more fulfilling life. Being authentic in your life isn't about perfection. It's about being real and honest and true to thyself. And in that, you are so ready for more openness, trusted, genuine connection, not just with yourself, but with others. I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you can cultivate authenticity, or how maybe this chat has inspired you to look at this very potent frequency of authenticity and the power that it really does hold in your life. So thank you for joining me on this episode. Reach out for any other further connections or insights that you might desire with all our practitioners on the Light Path Collective, who absolutely spend a lot of their time, downtime, personal time, cultivating their own authentic self. But as always, for now, just sending you so much love and light.